What greater enemy is there than the sea? Said Helgi. We find Lars Alstrom worthy of Valhalla. More applause. Lars almost fainted. His Valkyrie held him up while smiling and waving at the crowd. When the noise died down, Helgi continued. Lars Alstrom, do you know your parentage? I... The newcomer's voice cracked. I never knew my father. Helgi nodded. That is not uncommon. We will seek wisdom from the runes, unless Allfather wishes to intercede. Everyone turned towards the unoccupied throne. The ravens ruffled their feathers and squawked. The throne remained empty. Helgi did not look surprised, but his shoulders slumped with disappointment. He motioned towards the fire pit. From a cluster of servers and cooks, a lady in a green hooded robe shuffled forward. Her face was hidden in the shadows of her cowl, but judging from her stooped posture and her gnarled hands, she must have been ancient. I murmured to Sam, Who's the wicked witch? Vala, a seer. She can cast spells, read the future, and other stuff. The Vala approached our table. She stopped in front of Lars Alstrom and pulled a leather pouch from the folds of her robe. She plucked out a handful of rune stones like the ones in Uncle Randolph's study. And the runes? I whispered to Sam. What are they for? They're the old Viking alphabet, she said, but each letter also symbolizes something powerful. A god, a type of magic, a force of nature. They're like generic code for the universe. The Vala can read the stones to see your fate. The greatest sorcerers, like Odin, don't need to use the stones. They can manipulate reality simply by speaking the name of a rune. I made a mental note to avoid Odin. I didn't need any reality manipulated any further. In front of our table, the Vala muttered something under her breath. She cast the stones at her feet. They landed on the dirt floor, some face up, some face down. One rune in particular seemed to catch everyone's attention. The holographic screens projected its image to everyone in the hall. The mark meant nothing to me, but hundreds of warriors shouted with approval. Thor! They cried. Then they started to chant, Thor! 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 Sam grunted. As if we need another child of Thor. Why? What's wrong with them? Nothing. They're great. Gunilla over there, she's a daughter of Thor. Oh. The Valkyrie captain was smiling, which was even scarier than her scowl. As the chanting subsided, the Vala raised her withered arms. Lars, son of Thor, rejoice! The runes say you shall fight well at Ragnarok, and tomorrow, in your first combat, you shall prove your valor and be decapitated! The audience cheered and laughed. Lars suddenly looked very pale. That just made the warriors laugh harder, as if decapitation were a hazing ritual no worse than the wedgie. The Vala gathered her runes and retreated while Lars's Valkyrie helped him back to his seat. The ceremony continued. Next up was a newcomer named Didi. She'd saved a bunch of kids at her village school when a warlord's soldiers had tried to kidnap them. She'd flirted with one of the soldiers, tricked him into letting her hold his assault rifle, then turned it on the warlord's men. She was killed, but her selfless act gave the other kids time to get away. The video was pretty violent. The Vikings loved it. Didi got a standing ovation. The Vala read the runes. She confirmed that Didi's parents were regular mortals, but nobody seemed to mind that. According to Didi's fortune, she would fight valiantly at Ragnarok. Over the next week, she would lose her arms several times in combat. Within 100 years, she would rise to the Thane's table. Ooh! The crowd murmured appreciatively. The other 4 newcomers were equally impressive. They'd all saved people. They'd sacrificed their lives bravely. 2 were mortals. 1 was a son of Odin, which caused a minor commotion. Sam leaned towards me. Like I said, Odin has not been seen in quite a while. We welcome any sign that he still moves among mortals. The last newcomer was a daughter of Heimdall. I wasn't sure who that was, but the Vikings seemed impressed. My head was swimming from too much information. My senses were on fire from too much mead. I didn't even realize we'd reached the end of the table until Helgi called my name. Magnus Chase! He bellowed. Rise and impress us with your courage! End of chapter 14.